Right, so more to come. By the way, no, did I say Prof? Retired Judge Siraj Desai is going to be featured in the Champion People feature from just after 9:30 to 10. Look out for that. I'm looking forward to connecting with him. We'll also get an update on trying to make sense of the whole Tokyo Sekhwali story. I think you should, right? But to get us there, your past is not your future. That's the plan from Imraan Choonara today. He's the CEO of Africa Muslims Agency, but also a personal excellence mentor. Imraan, appreciate your time as always. Make sense of your past not being your future. Assalamu alaikum.
Absolutely, Ashraf. And of course, great to be with the Salam Media again and the listeners. And of course, Juma Mubarak to everybody as well. And the viewers, obviously, on Facebook Live, etc. So your past is not your future. Let's put this in context. I think most people understand where we're going with this. But you see, first of all, we all have a past. Let's be honest. We all have baggage. Doesn't matter how old you are. Doesn't matter what's going on in life. Doesn't matter how successful you might be or whatever the case is. We all have baggage. Now, some of that baggage, some of our past, our drama, our issues, our struggles have been inflicted on us by others. Some of that has been inflicted on us by circumstances of life, out of our control. But also some of that has been inflicted on ourselves by ourselves. And that's often something we don't like to admit. So let's cover those three aspects. What do we mean by others? You know what we mean. Maybe you were part of an abusive relationship. Maybe you suffered ridicule in your past, maybe abandonment, maybe isolation, maybe whatever the case is, and you feel it was inflicted on you by others. That's one aspect of your past, right? And you're carrying it with you. Secondly, circumstances that surround us. Maybe you suffered financial loss. Maybe you suffered career, a setback in your career. Maybe with COVID, for example, you lost everything around you. Maybe jobs, maybe a business, whatever the case is. Circumstances outside of your control inflicted something on you. But then, of course, ourselves. What do I mean by ourselves? You see, you've done something in your life that maybe you're not proud of. Maybe you were a bad parent. Maybe you were addicted to something in the past. Maybe you were a bad spouse. Maybe you've done some things that nobody knows about, that you feel guilty for, that you're not proud of. Now, here's the challenge, though. Any number of those things, where your past was inflicted on you by others, maybe you were abused, maybe whatever the case is, or circumstances of life, or yourself. Two things that come out of that: guilt and shame. Guilt and shame. So we carry guilt and shame with us for decades. Some people, their entire lives, carry the guilt and shame. Either they were a victim of what others inflicted on them, and they carry the guilt or shame, or circumstances, they went broke and now they were embarrassed, or they lost everything, or something happened. Or, like I say, inflicted by themselves. Maybe they were addicted to something or whatever the case is. I want to leave you with a couple of thoughts. We have 1.5 minutes left here. Remember, this does not have to define you. Your past does not define you. You cannot change the past. It's done. Even if it was inflicted by yourself, even if you believe you were a bad human being, and even if others agree with you that you were a bad human being, draw a line in the sand. Draw a line in the sand, step over it. Decide that your future will be different. That's a decision only you can make. Like we say, even if somebody is an alcoholic or a drug addict, they first have to accept, this is who I am. They have to admit it. They have to decide that I want to be a different human being. And then their future can be different, because then they start embarking on a journey of personal excellence. And I tell you, I'm not saying this lightly, guys. I've been there. What I mean by that? There was a time in my life when I was absolutely financially destitute, where I had no money to feed my family, no money to give food to my kids. And maybe that's why I'm so passionate about just serving another human being when it comes to feeding. Because for me, this is important. Your past is not your future. I'm grateful that someone taught me back then that, Imraan, you can draw a line in the sand, you can step over it, and you can grow beyond it. And I can look back at that time as growth and not as destruction. Don't carry guilt and shame. Your past is not your future.
I like that image. Draw a line in the sand, you can step over it. And, your point about redemption must always be there. Certainly as people of the Islamic faith, that concept that Allah is closer to you than your jugular vein, which suggests that His mercy is also closer to you than your jugular vein. So if you reach out to Him and put your faith in Him to ensure that you do cross that line in the sand, then inshallah, and I think we speak for every one of us, because we have different levels of anxiety, we can't cross that line. in the sand itself. Right, great chatting to you. You've got a weekend to relax, and we're going to chat on Monday.
Fantastic. Excellent, Ashraf. Have a great weekend.
Perfect. Excellent is the word, because personal excellence is what Imraan talks about. He's also the CEO of Africa Muslims Agency. Hopefully you enjoyed all of that. I'll tell you what, there's a couple of SMSs that we just going to pick up on. Rahima, what have you got? Or WhatsApp messages, actually.
So the first one gave me a bit of a giggle, Ashraf. They said to us, you know what, Ashraf? No uncles in the show. Thank you for saying that. My blood boils when I hear the word uncle on an Islamic radio station.
Whoa.
Presenters should tell people to stop saying that. That's from Rehana Dean. She wasn't shy about who she is.
Well,
and she's from Overport in Durban.
Well, great. Well, Rihanna, I feel strongly about. That's why I told the guest to say we're equal on the show. I could actually be your biological uncle, and it's what I'm not in terms of her. But let's say even if I was, in the context of the show, we're all absolutely equal. So I get your point, and I completely agree with you. Right.
And we've got one more. Salam's brother Ashraf. Sometimes when you give too much, especially financially, and even your time can become detrimental to yourself. So I find I'm saying no more often now. People use your kindness as your weakness at times. That's an interesting thought.
Okay, and that's why that issue of the tightrope and getting the balance right. When do you say yes? When do you say no? In fact, I have some examples. When do you actually say yes? I want an example of that. And you can continue WhatsApping 061 766 0355. Right, we're going to chat, try to make sense of this whole Tokyo Sexwali Heritage Fund. Did he not? Right after this.
Recap on Inspired Afternoons with